tax freight train is bearing down on your retirement. To protect yourself, you'll have to harness the power of zero.
Hello, folks. This is David McKnight. Welcome to the Power of Zero show. Grateful that you're along for the ride. As I am the best-selling author of The Power of Zero, Look Before You Leap, The Volatility Shield, and as of last week, Tax-Free Income for Life. It released on November 17th. I hope you bought a copy. If you haven't bought a copy, it certainly is not too late. If you are looking for an advisor to help you navigate all the pitfalls that stand between you and the 0% tax bracket, head over to davidmcknight.com. If you are an advisor who wants to transition his or her practice to a Power of Zero type practice and you want to be trained, vetted, and qualified, you can head over to powerofzero.com. We'd be happy to chat with you. As always, would love a follow on Twitter at McKnight and Co. at McKnight and Co. And if you haven't put a review for Tax-Free Income for Life on Amazon yet, I'd be absolutely honored if you did. Tickled pink. Okay, let's talk about today's subject matter. And I would like to weigh in on the presidential election. This is the presidential election post-mortem, as it were. As you can see, by the time I recorded this, it will not have been certified by the Election Commission, the Electoral College, actually. But I think it's pretty clear at this point that Joe Biden will be the next president of the United States. And I would like to talk about a couple of different outcomes. The first one involves him not controlling the Senate. I think that this is likely to be the case. I think it was actually took a minor miracle on election night for the Republicans to win as many seats as they did. So he will not likely control the Senate. In order to control the Senate, he has to win, Democrats have to win 2 Senate seats in Georgia runoffs on January 5th. And Republicans typically have a pretty good ground game when it comes to these Senate elections and pretty good turnouts. There will be a lot of focus on that state between now and then. Anything could happen. However, the pundits are saying it is a long shot for because remember, Democrats have to take both of those seats. One isn't going to do it because as of right now, Republicans are at 50 seats in the Senate and Democrats are at 48. So they get to 50, and then Kamala Harris would be the tiebreaker. So if Republicans control the Senate, that is a lot of obstruction for Joe Biden's agenda. And I think what you're going to see, at least for the first 2 years, up until midterm, is a lot of obstruction. And everything that he's really campaigned on is going to be effectively neutralized. Now, if that's the case, there may be a lot of change that happens at midterms. We always do see a lot of change at midterms. I think that Joe Biden will have to postpone any major changes that he's campaigned on until then. So that means you're probably going to have 2 years of relative status quo. However, let's talk about a few scenarios if he does end up winning both of those seats. I think that here's what we're going to expect immediately. And I think that Joe Biden is going to have to cash in on this first 2 years and really try to drive his agenda through, because I think it's an aggressive agenda. I think it could be a potentially polarizing agenda. And remember, my job is not to take sides here, just to tell you how I see these things shaking out as it relates to your retirement. It could be a relatively polarizing agenda, which means that come midterms, there could be some backlash, because remember, the pendulum almost always swings the other way. This is what I think you can expect to see if he does gain control of the Senate. If you make more than $400,000 per year, you basically are a marked man or woman, as it were. Here's what you can expect if you make more than $400,000. We'll get to if you are in those middle income tax brackets, what that means for you. But think about this. If you live, for example, in California, and you make more than $400,000, I think Joe Biden is coming for you. And here's what I mean. You will have to pay a 13.3% state tax. If he gets his way, that 37%, that top marginal one, will become 39.6. So add 39.6 on top of that. He will then make you pay 14% additional Social Security ad infinitum for every dollar you make above and beyond $400,000, and then throw another 3.8% for an Obamacare surcharge. I've added all of this up for you. I've done the heavy lifting on your behalf. We are looking at, once again, 70s style tax rates. We're talking 70.7%. We have not seen the likes of that on the margin since the decade of the 70s. So it's a return to the 70s as far as that goes. We've talked in the past about how you will have fewer and fewer ways to mitigate that tax. You will no longer be able to get, if Joe Biden gets his plan pushed through, you'll no longer be able to deduct 401k contributions on the margin. You will probably have, instead of deducting, because remember, if you deduct it on the margin, almost all of those taxes are going to be neutralized for those dollars that get contributed to 401ks under a normal scenario. What Joe Biden has proposed is that there be equal tax deductions spread across the board, regardless of what marginal tax rate you're in. So the person that is in the 10% tax bracket that contributes 10% to his 401k will get the same deduction as somebody who's in the highest marginal tax bracket who contributes $10,000 to his or her 401k. So you're going to start to see deductions phasing out if you are in those higher income levels. In other words, he wants to be able to tax you at high marginal tax rates, and he doesn't want to give you a lot of recourse in terms of mitigating that tax. We've talked about this in the past. Long-term capital gains, if you have significant income that's higher than $1 million, that those short-term capital gains could become, those long-term capital gains could become short-term capital gains, once again being taxed at those levels that we talked about. Like I said, he'll have, if he wins the Senate, he'll have 2 years to turn this into law. He's going to run roughshod over a lot of members of Congress to be able to pull this off. He'll ruffle a lot of feathers, which means if he is able to push this through in the first 2 years, he will likely lose the Senate at midterms. However, for the first 2 years, you better duck and cover if you make $400,000 or more. If you make less than $400,000, Joe Biden presidency is relatively good news for you, I think. And one of the things that he's promised is that anybody making less than $400,000 will not pay any more tax than they're currently paying. In fact, Joe Biden has actually said, and I've had a lot of people argue this point with me, and it's simply not the case. Joe Biden is not going to let the entire tax cut expire. What he wants to do is he wants to let the tax cuts expire for those people who make $400,000, so those higher marginal tax brackets. But for middle income America, who he has deemed as anyone making less than $400,000, he wants to make your tax cuts permanent. And we'll get into the implications of this here in a second. And we already talked about 401ks. This could get very interesting if you're in, say, a 22 or 24% tax bracket. It could make a lot of sense for you to contribute to your 401k. If you are above the 24% tax bracket, say 32, 35, 30, 37, or the Joe Biden equivalent of those, it may not make sense to contribute money to a 401k because you're actually going to be paying tax as opposed to getting a full tax deduction. You're going to be paying tax for the privilege of putting money into that 401k. And if you want more fleshing out of those details, I've done a couple of podcasts on the implications of that. You won't have the phasing out of deductions. So in other words, I think that Joe Biden has really got an agenda that is focused on people in those middle to lower income tax brackets. He doesn't want you paying any more tax that you currently are. I think there will be some unintended consequences of some of these policies, particularly if you are making less than $400,000 but are in more than a 24% tax bracket. So there's a little window in there where you could be negatively affected by the implications for contributions to 401ks. All right. What does all of this mean for the power of zero paradigm? What does a Joe Biden presidency mean for the power of zero paradigm? I think that it is largely good news if you believe that Joe Biden is going to make the tax cuts permanent on those who have less than $400,000 or make less than $400,000. In other words, he's saying if Your income, when coupled with Roth contributions or LIRP contributions, can keep you lower than $400,000. Probably want to stay in that 24% tax bracket, which, tops out at 326-ish, 326,000 and change, I believe. That's good news if you can keep the 22 and the 24, if he can make those permanent, particularly given the fiscal condition of our country. I've noted in past episodes that we actually can't afford to keep tax rates this low much longer. In fact, we're actually past the point of no return. We need to broaden the tax base, and we need to do it in a really big way. You would have to tax 103% of any dollar made above and beyond $400,000 in this country to be able to, you have to tax at 103% any dollar above and beyond $400,000 made in this country to be able to prevent the national deficit from growing. This is not reducing or eliminating, but to prevent it from growing greater than $1 trillion per year. It's not enough to just raise the taxes on the rich. It's not going to pay down the debt. It'll fund Joe Biden initiatives. It's not going to pay down the debt. So unless you believe in modern monetary theory, where the federal government has an infinity bucket and you can just simply print your way out of your problems, and it's not going to have an impact on inflation or all of the other bad things that go along with cranking up the printing press, I don't think that there's any way to solve our problems other than ultimately raising taxes on the middle class. So Joe Biden is kicking the can down the road. It's going to compound our problems over time. But if you're looking to take advantage of this window of opportunity before we come face to face with reality, this is a great opportunity to continue to do Roth conversions, LIRP conversions, and generally getting money shifted to the tax-free bucket. Remember, the cost of getting into the tax-free bucket is you have to be willing to pay a tax. Now, would you rather pay the tax at today's historically low tax rates, or would you rather postpone the payment of those taxes until some point much further down the road? These are really my impressions. Either Joe Biden retains the Senate, doesn't retain the Senate, he wins over the Senate. If he wins over the Senate, there's going to be a lot of shock and awe in the first 2 years of his administration as they push through a number of pieces of legislation that disproportionately impact those who make more than $400,000. If he doesn't win the Senate, he's going to bide his time until midterms and hope to gain the Senate. There's a number of Republican seats that come up for a vote in the midterms. It's roughly a third of those Senate seats, remember, come up for election every 2 years. So he's going to have plenty of opportunity at midterm to, number one, retain the House and try to gain a simple majority in the Senate. All right. Once again, if you were looking for an advisor to help you navigate all of the pitfalls that stand between you and the 0% tax bracket, head over to davidmcknight.com. And if you're an advisor that wants to adopt the Power Zero worldview paradigm in your practice, head over to powerofzero.com. Next week, we should have enough info to be able to tell you how we did with tax-free income for life. Did we make any of the bestseller lists? If we did, it'll be much in great part to all of the support that you guys have given to the book and to this podcast. Thanks so much, and we will look forward to chatting with you same time next week.